Welcome to Cut the Bull, an insightful podcast which addresses the news of the day and the cultural issues plaguing our society, bringing logic and context to these topics and discussing solutions too real for mainstream pundits. Now, here are your hosts, Charles Love, Shamika Michelle, and Wilfred Riley.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Bull. I am Charles Love, alongside my co-hosts Shamika Michelle and Wilfred Riley. And this is a bonus episode, kind of a special. We were supposed to be off for Thanksgiving, but then we found out that actor, producer, and director and friend of the show, Nick Searcy, was having a movie come out on Thanksgiving, and he was kind enough to talk to us about it. So we decided to bring him on. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Charles, and good to see you guys again.
You too.
Good to see you.
So your movie's coming out on Thanksgiving. It is called Capital Punishment, and
Yep.
it is about the death penalty and whether we should pass or repeal. Oh, that's not what it's about, is it?
No, it's not about that. No.
Oh, no. It's about this thing and something that happened on January 6th that had been in the news, and I heard some stuff about it. 'Cause I
Yeah.
really don't watch the news because people are crazy. But when I do turn it on, it's like this nonstop talk about the sky is falling and it's the end of the world. And, basically it was a new revolution of some sorts. And you made a movie about it. So I don't know. I mean, I can guess, but I don't want to put any words in your mouth. So tell us what it's about. Are you basically showing, kind of like in a Ken Burns fashion, how the country was coming apart and just documenting it before it's all gone, so we have it on tape? Is that what it's like? Or tell us about this film.
No, well, there's the poster for it. It's called Capital Punishment right there behind me.
Yep.
And that lady standing there is Ashley Babbitt. That's the lady who was killed. The only person on January 6th. And so this came about basically because I was there on January. Not to make a film, but I just went because I'm a great American. And so I just went there and I was just sort of taking cell phone, iPhone movies or whatever, and I saw a lot of people. It was the biggest crowd I've ever seen. I saw these people praying, singing songs. I saw people of all races, all colors. It was very, very happy and sort of joyous crowd. And then when I got home that night, about any violence that had taken place because I didn't see any. And then when I got home that night, all that I saw in the movie was this horrible event that I didn't see. And so that's kind of how the idea came about. What is going on here? Why didn't the media know how many people were there, and why are they only telling one side of the story? So that's basically what was the origination of the film was.
I mean, that seems important because it tells, this is a very partisan issue, but I'm always about whatever you're going to talk about, you need to be honest about it. So even if we paint this in the worst case scenario and there were some people who were trying to take down the country, the news, for those who don't watch this film or talk to anyone who's there, what they get from the news is that this is what happened there. It was widespread. It was what everyone there was doing. And this is obviously just a small glimpse of what all Trump supporters and everyone who voted for him. So it became whatever that number was that walked into the Capitol, 100 to 400 people. It became every single person that voted for Trump. And so now they use that as a weapon of sorts for that. And so I want to go with Shamika because, Shamika, I want to ask you, have you heard anything of anybody? Like, do you personally know anybody? I mean, not you, but do you know anybody who would have been anywhere near D.C. on January 6th that can somehow corroborate his story? I mean, not you, but anybody that you may know. That was
I'm
personally
wondering.
there.
I can't believe that I missed, the camera. I had on the best hat out there. I was looking nice and sharp in my trench coat. And so I have to agree with you, Nick. I was shocked once I left. Of course, I was just telling you all that I'm anemic. So once I realized, because I was supposed to speak, once I realized that wasn't going to happen, I was cold and I was like, okay, I'm black and I need to get inside. Like this
Yeah.
not my people. We don't do this. So, but all I saw, even once they broke through the barriers, were people standing on the steps, singing the national anthem, just having a good time. I had so many good conversations out there with different people, Asian people, white people, Hispanic people. Like, it was just a good, fun time. So I was very surprised once I got back to my friend's condo when people started calling and asking me what was I okay. I'm there eating shrimp, drinking wine, having a good time, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because my friend didn't have cable, and they tried to attack. They got inside and were trying to attack Nancy Pelosi and blah blah. And I was like, that's not what I saw. That's not what I saw at all. And so I'm just wondering, I was on the side of the Capitol facing the Supreme Court, and I was maybe
That's
something
me
else
too.
took
I was there
place.
too. Yeah.
You were on that side?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, I was shocked because what I see on the news, I didn't see any of that in person at all. And I think when they decided to start locking people up, it made people be quiet about being there. Because why am I going to say, oh, hey, 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 no, 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 I was there, when I know, I don't have the bail money to get out what they are charging people. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything. Although I didn't do anything, I think that was their way of shutting people up from
Okay.
telling the truth. So I'm actually glad you're doing this movie because people need to see. Nobody really cares what I think. I have a small platform, but people need to see that it was not what the media portrayed it to be at all.
And and
Absolutely.
just and I just want to make sure everybody know that that was hypothetically speaking on Shamika's part. If she happened to
Right.
be there, that's what she would say, and that would be the side of the Capitol she would be on if she were
Correct.
there.
Yeah, because everybody knows I'm a witch. I can channel, so that's what I did.
So Will, what are your thoughts on just the nature of why he did the film and how it was portrayed in the media?
Well, first of all, I mean, you always want a friend of the show to do well in business, so on. So, I mean, hopefully that succeeds. I will say the Capitol thing. There are a couple different stories going on. I still have a fair number of friends in law enforcement. One of the things I teach is criminal justice, and I mean, there's no doubt that there were a pretty good number of people, 400 or more, that broke into the Capitol, fought with the police, and some of the stories from kind of a cynical right-leaning perspective can almost be funny. I mean, people were stealing things like podiums. Someone apparently pissed in Nancy Pelosi's office, frankly. Like, there are a number of reports of that. They haven't caught him. They haven't caught the mad peer. But someone took one of her laptops. There were obvious videos of people outside fighting the Capitol Police. Those aren't deep fakes or anything like that. So I
Yeah.
think that that's one obvious element of this. And in general, I don't have a ton of sympathy for rioters of any kind. I mean, this is my position on the Black Lives Matter riots. It's my position on the few right-wing backlashes we've seen. It's my position on rioting as someone who's lived been overseas in the third world, where that's much more common, where mobs are a major threat to the stability of whole cities. So, I mean, that's not good. That is a thing that happened. And I think in kind of that sane right, we can't say, well, no, after the Venezuelan voting machine stole the election, the videos of this were all forged or something like that. But I think there are two other levels to this. I mean, so first of all, when you guys say there were, what was it, the crowd was estimated at 140,000 or something like this?
It's
When you say
ridiculous.
there
There
were,
were 2 million people. There was 2 million people there.
really?
Yeah.
I'd have to check. Obviously, I generally believe you, but I'd have to check those figures. But I mean, like, when you say
Well,
there were
they will
all
lie
these,
to you about the figures. There were 2
well,
million people.
well, you can also, I mean, you could like Google Map, and I could send it to our weather guy here, who's
I'd
ex-military.
love for
I
you
mean,
to do that because I would like to know.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. And actually, I do think citizen journalists are going to have to start doing some of this stuff. just as with the riots, it was guys like Andy No that were walking, all those two ex-Marine, the Latino cats, guys that were walking around with cameras filming things like churches on fire. And that's how we're aware of what happened during a lot of the BLM riots and the street fighting that followed that, citizens responding to them. That wasn't captured by the network news, which is running headlines like fiery but mostly peaceful. But with that said, so I mean, obviously there was fighting with the police that day. There were people that were arrested that day. There were officers that went to the large D.C. hospital named after one of the former mayors, if I recall correctly. That's been pretty well documented, including in the right-wing press by Reagan Battalion. But I guess the next two levels of this would be, so there were at minimum hundreds of thousands of people there. What was everyone else doing while that happened? That's something that generally hasn't been discussed because the focus is saying this entire, they'll give the size of the crowd, even if they are lying about a little bit, but then you get the impression that this entire crowd rushed into the Capitol and was engaged in violence. And that's where the idea of this was an insurrection to some extent comes from. So I think that's interesting. I would like to hear the rest of that story.
Is there a third? You said there were 3 points. Two other things.
So point one is obviously there was real fighting. That was point two. There obviously was a peaceful crowd at that same time.
Right.
And point three, I think, is, part native as well. You can't trust the government that much. So when we're seeing the descriptions of what happened even in the Capitol, or we're seeing some of the sentences that are coming down now, like the guy in the Buffalo Horns just got 4 years, I do think citizens should maintain some kind of scrutiny about what's going on there. I would actually, final sentence, like to see just the full video of the incident, like where the entire crowd was, who was in the Capitol, how many people were involved in violence against the police, what kind of weapons were they using, how skilled were they at fighting, something most of this panel could probably judge, so on down the line. And that's something I really haven't seen. So obviously, there was an unpleasant incident that day that I'm not going to minimize. The question is, what was the scope? And that's an important question when it's being presented as the 1/6 insurrection.
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, I'll get to my opinion shortly, but I want to get back to Nick to talk about that because you make some point about the difference between what Shamika hypothetically saw and what happened on the news. So you say there's this gray area. So I want to talk about, Nick, a little bit. Talk to us about what you got in your shots because you were out there to film not knowing this was going to happen. Other people are filming, so obviously you must have had to do the work to collect other footage because what media footage is going to be kind of one-sided. They all set up in one spot and there's people everywhere. So how did you come about getting the footage for the film?
People who were there who gave their own impressions of the day, and this interesting idea that you always hear that side that they were really these violent rioters that were there. We're certainly not in favor of that. But what you realize that the first breach of the Capitol happened at 12:45 p.m., which is 15 minutes before Trump even stopped speaking. So this whole idea that the media sold you, that Trump incited everybody to go over there and riot, just doesn't fit with the facts. Somebody was breaking windows at the Capitol before Trump finished speaking, so his speech couldn't have incited them. The other thing is we have footage of these people that were breaking windows, masks. Most of them are maybe dressed like Trump supporters, but they've got their hats on backwards. They've got doesn't seem to fit. And in the footage that we have, you see the people who are breaking the windows, and everybody in the crowd is screaming, "Stop doing." There's a lot of other things about what happened that day. On one side, the side that Shamika and I were moving the barricades and letting people go towards the Capitol. They were inviting people into the Capitol on our side. Doors, we have testimony from people who saw people going in and out of the Capitol, went up and asked the police, "Is it okay if we come in?" And they said yes. And they walked in, they took a couple of selfies, they walked back out. 3 weeks later, the FBI is at their door. There are all these anomalies about that day. The fact that there were no police between the ellipse where and the Capitol building. All the police were focused only on the Capitol building. There was no security there, even though it was a huge crowd. There are so many things like this. There are people there in the crowd with radio, giving orders talking to each other on the radios. We have footage of people in the bushes changing out of Trump clothing in block clothing. We have John Sullivan, who is in the Capitol building saying, we did it. He's there filming Ashley Babbitt being shot. I mean, a lot of this stuff, this idea was a bunch of crazy Trump supporters that did all this. That's a lie. And that's why I say that everything in the tagline of the film is everything they've told you is a lie. Lie is purposeful. The lie and to scare. And the news is coming out about what happened in that tunnel to Roseanne Boylan. They said it was a drug overdose. It wasn't a drug overdose. She was beaten to death. There's a lot of stuff that happened. Also on the other side of the Capitol, sorry to go on and on, but on the other side of the Capitol, the police were not firing tear gas canisters or flashbang grenades in front of the crowd to keep them from coming forward. They were firing them into the middle so that the crowd had to go forward. There was a lot of evidence that the crowd was being herded toward the Capitol. So all of these things are not just sort of easily explained away like a bunch of crazy Trump supporters that ran into the building. The guy Jacob Shanley, supporter. I mean, he's just a kind of a crazy guy who goes around and dresses up like a buffalo at these things. I mean, all of the whole narrative that they're selling for one purpose, and that is to silence you, that is to scare you, and to make you never, ever do this again. Never, ever raise against the government ever again.
Now, we try to be as honest and fair as you can be, but obviously there's no one here on this panel that thinks that the country was going to end the next day. So it's not like, that insurrection talk kind of makes you bristle a bit. But I will say that a lot of this stuff I kind of watch, it's just like news to me. I watch it and kind of like, okay, I take from it, I'm a cynic at heart anyway. And it's like, okay, fine. And then at the same time, because when I debate the left, I always give them their argument. So I say, let's assume the worst of what they're saying. Okay, you can't even push me even at that to the insurrection thing. But okay, there was some malintent and there was some Trump supporters and all that kind of thing. And as bad as the government may be, as Will mentioned, it's really the media thing, because whatever the case may be, I'm giving them the argument now. These people were bad actors. They were all Trump supporters, 100% of them. But the part about the insurrection and how it's an attack on democracy, as bad as we may think the government is, what's interesting to me is that's what the media said for months. But as these sentences come down, right, nobody's getting 20 to life. Right, they're getting months. They're getting probation. That guy got 4 years that I think Will was talking about. But a lot of the things that I'm hearing, these people are getting very. So that Nick will get to in a minute, because he sent us a couple clips in the trailer about some families and the ordeal they went through and how they went to their houses like they were mass murderers and all, right? But then when they all shake out and they face the judge, it's like 3 months, 10 months. Right? That's not what you do with somebody who's trying to take over the country. So the government doesn't even believe that they were trying to take over the country. Yet CNN on a daily basis says, see, every time something happens, a black man gets shot in Chicago, they say, this goes right back to the insurrection on January 6th. Right? I don't understand whatever you think about the people, even if we're limiting it to just the people who went into the Capitol, why people who aren't political watch this and think it's okay to just say that this is a bunch of America hating violent people who are trying to take over the country. So what do you think about that? Will, let's go to you first. What do you think about that narrative, about how it's portrayed, but how regular people just take it in and think it's normal? I have very logical people who aren't left-wing nut jobs saying, but I do think January 6th was kind of insurrection-ish.
Yeah, so again, I think there are a couple of different thread lines here. So first of all, generally there are a few agents, provocateurs at any large event. I've thrown large events in the nightlife sector. And if you look at guys that were on the actual sort of stable Black Lives Matter Global Foundation side, they will argue very seriously that people from Antifa, Black Bloc, even a few boog boys on the right would show up at their events and turn these into riots and brawls. And it sounds like people now on the right are making that same claim. I'm a little skeptical about it to some extent. I mean, you might usually have 2 or 3 guys that are looking for a fight or that might even be undercover feds. But again, I mean, hundreds of people did go into the Capitol. We've seen the pictures on the steps and so on. So at the first level, I do think it's important to keep that in mind. I mean, we love you, Nick, and I'm sure most of the points in the movie are pretty valid, but...
Well, you'll have to see it, you know.
Of course, and I'm saying I said I'm sure I'm a man of good faith, but we will check it out. I'll watch it probably tonight if you sent the clips along. But I mean, so if you go to, say, Business Insider and you look at that list of the people that got arrested, there's 702 of them, and a lot of them do look like names you would see on Righty Pol on 4chan. I don't think all those guys were Black Bloc infiltrators. So that, I mean, I know a couple of them.
No,
you know?
they didn't do anything to the guys on Black Bloc. That's what I'm saying. They only went after all of the people that were their instigators. They were let go. They don't do anything to them.
Now, that actually may well, that I would probably agree with, that in any large crowd at an event like this, even thinking back to something like the Detroit Electronic Music Festival, where ravers and locals will fight outdoors for a day, but certainly something like a BLM protest. I mean, yes, there may be a few provocateurs there on either side. There's some videos of people that frankly look like feds that Tucker Carlson and others have released. But again, they're also, whether they were misled or not, and some of them seem to be the guys at the lead, when you break down those names. I mean, there is a breakdown of about 800 people, almost all associated with the right, that did get arrested. So that's point one. I think, though, Charles is kind of moving to point two, where he's saying, what's up with this bullshit from the media that are presenting this as a near takeover of the country? And, I mean, obviously that is a valid point. I mean, when you use a term like insurrection, that's a nearly successful revolution. So, no, I agree with you on this, Charles. I don't think there's any chance that 300 people wearing Pokemon-style outfits were going to topple the U.S. government. I mean, the Ashley Babbitt thing, very unfortunate, but you couldn't even get through the line of probably 50 armed D.C. and Capitol Police with automatics that are in front of the Congress people. And then there are, 535 Congress people, more than half male, with things like table legs? Like, there's no chance of the government being replaced. So, I mean, I don't assume they didn't have any other weapons in the Capitol that day, but this is not something that's going to topple the country. So, yes, the charges that you're seeing are things like trespass, criminal trespass, possession of a weapon, not a firearm. One of the things I actually looked at was whether there were going to be any charges for, say, insurrectionary activity, terrorist threat, that kind of thing. And, I mean, we've seen none. So on the one hand, yeah, a bad, ugly thing happened from that percentage of the crowd that entered the building. But two, yes, we shouldn't let the media tell us that this is World War III. And again, one sentence, you have to put that in the context of the entire year full of riots, which set 30 or so major cities on fire and killed 50 people. So a complex picture, a palette, if you will.
Shamika, anything?
No, I was just wondering, so is the list of 700 people the list that supposedly went inside the Capitol? And I guess I'm asking... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry to jump in. No, it's Business Insider, which, I mean, the old line, any institution that's not openly conservative will eventually swing left. They're moving that way. But I mean, one of the investment papers I read actually looked at this, and they decided to send a real financial journalist and a real ex-military guy to go check it out, to see who'd been arrested, what the charges were. You can pull this up. 702 people have been charged in the Capitol insurrection so far. This searchable table shows them all. And there are a bunch of people that are writing on this. Jacob Shamazian, who's pretty good. Aaron Snodgrass, their financial person. But they don't say anything else. Insurrection's kind of a giveaway there.
I was going to say, did they say insurrection? You saw me kind of jump when you said that. They're reading like the 702 people charged with jaywalking from the insurrection.
But I mean, like, the right-wing press has been kind of embarrassing itself on a lot of fronts lately. That's a different story that I want to get into, the social pressure of working in a city. But no, I mean, of the 700 people, I mean, you can just scroll down through the names and see who they are, groups they're allegedly affiliated with, so on. So those are the people that are charged. That's not just everyone that entered the Capitol. Now, I think Nick's point would be, if there actually is an agent provocateur or something like that, they're not going to charge him. So, like that guy that was walking around in the Tucker Carlson clip,
Ray
just saying things like, we're going to have to go into the Capitol, boys. Are you with me? Like, nobody, I mean, I know it is, but nobody is supposed to know who that guy is. There have been no charges against that guy. There's the other guy that was arrested by Capitol Police. I believe this was at one of the follow-up events, but a couple firearms on him, was removed and then was never charged. And there's a video of the incident. The obvious reason is he's a federal agent. At one point, he hands over what appears to be an ID. It's possible that that happened. You know, this is a mostly black show. COINTELPRO was real. This kind of thing against the hard right and the hard left, it's happened before. But, again, those 702 guys just are as they are. Those were the right-leaning individuals that were charged with crimes. Who went into the Capitol? I don't know. I don't even think the feds know that.
Yeah, I was just asking because, of course, you know, I worked for the Walkaway campaign, and Brandon Strock was one of those people that were arrested. And I've watched the video, plus I've worked with him since 2018. I know for a fact that was not his voice on there telling people to take the police's shield. Yet, in order to try and diminish his time, he pleaded guilty to something that he didn't actually do. So I'm just wondering, like, out of the people that were actually arrested, how many of them are getting railroaded for just, and he actually didn't even go inside the Capitol. He was on the steps, and he did video himself, you know, saying, I think we're going in, y'all, we're going in. And yet he got charged. 3 charges, you know, and so I'm just wondering, out of those people, how many of them, you know, is he like an anomaly? Is he one of the few that got a bogus charge, you know? And I'm just curious about that because it makes me think, thank God I was not with him that day because normally I am. And I'm like, I would have never been one of those people peeing in, you know, Pelosi's office or whatever, or even trying to hurt the police. I could have actually gotten a charge if I had been, you know, close enough for them to say, hey, we think you were around him, or if they just wanted to railroad me for being, you know, there. I'm wondering how many people that actually happened to.
Well, I'll tell you something. If you see the movie, everybody that we profile in the movie, we profile 6 people pretty closely, what they did that day and what their charges are, what they're facing now. 4 of the people that are charged with over 28 years that they're facing when the charges never went in the building. This is not just limited to people who entered the Capitol. Everybody that was there is suspect. And so we have people, 3 of the people that we interviewed never went in the Capitol. 2 of the people that we interviewed did go in the Capitol. Those 2 little 74-year-old women who went in and took a couple of pictures. The FBI comes to their house, threatens to charge them with domestic terrorism, tells them they're going to put them on a no-fly list. I mean, you have the people that are being persecuted for this are not the people that broke the windows and went into the building. And they are doing this on purpose. They are going after people that of limited means, that cannot fight back. They don't have $10,000, $100,000 to mount a vigorous legal defense, and they get these court-appointed attorneys that are basically working for the government to try to get plea bargains. And that's why you get, you know, like you were saying, Shamika, Brandon pleading to something that he didn't do because he doesn't have a trial in front of a D.C. jury, in front of people that hate him, with a court-appointed attorney that is actually working for the government. So they do this to these people. They try to pile up all these guilty pleas and say, look, they admitted it. They pled guilty. And they try to threaten these people with years and years and years, and they just go, okay, I'll take the felony. I'll serve 6 months. I'll get on with my life, even though after that I won't be able to vote or have a firearm. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to neutralize people that oppose them, and they're trying to send a message, don't ever, ever, ever do not oppose us, or we will do to you what we've done to these people.
So what is the most surprising thing people will find in the film?
The way the FBI is treating decent American citizens who have never been arrested for anything before in their lives. They come to their houses at 6 a.m. in the morning. This happens over and over and over again. It's the same thing. 6 a.m., armored vehicles going down a little suburban street, battering ram, 20 SWAT team members, FBI members. They wake you up screaming through a bullhorn in your neighborhood, Tony Martinez, come out with your hands up. And they basically terrorize you in front of your neighbors and stigmatize you and turn your neighbors against you with all this show of force. Your neighbors start going, he must have done something horrible. And then they handcuffed his daughter. His dog.
13, right?
Huh?
13 years old?
13-year-old daughter. I mean, the terror tactics they are using are intentional. They are over the top for a reason. There is no reason to do this. There's a doctor in the movie that we profile, Dr. Simone Gold, who started the and they broke her door down. They came to her house and broke her door down. This is a fairly well-known public figure who has never been violent a day in her life. There is do that to someone like that unless you're just trying to terrorize people and send a message. All of these people never broken the law before. A phone call, we'd like to talk to you. That's the normal way that the FBI would do an investigation.
And you had that on tape in the film. You actually show somebody captured that. I saw at least one, I think two. I saw of those armored vehicles with all the bodies hanging on the outside because they send so many officials with them going down the street early in the morning to make that arrest.
In Lake Elsinore, California, a little bitty town. It's like something you.
Wow. Anything else, Will? What do you want to say?
I feel I've done a fair amount of talking already. I wasn't involved in the event. I mean, for me, a term I use a lot on Twitter is taqiyya, which is an Arabic term that means bullshit. Like, taqiyya occurs when you are aware, and I see this mostly on the left, but taqiyya occurs when you're aware of what reality is. Men and women are different, for example. And you are intentionally lying or fronting to present something else as reality. Right. And I don't think any of us are doing that here, but I have seen the right slide toward taqiyya a little bit sometimes when it comes to 1/6, which is why I'm discussing some of this. I'm looking at that list of the guys. So Brandon Straka is on here, actually. I mean, we're all pretty good with computers. I pulled him up. But yeah, he's charged with knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted building or grounds. It looks like that's the only charge they kept up for him. That may well be an exaggeration of what he ended up getting. But I mean, looking through that list, there also was that they charged that idiot who walked out with the podium, the person that stole the computer. And I have to feel like I partied in undergrad school pretty extensively, and some of my friends were involved in a number of the ways people fund that, let's say. And you have to understand at some level, if you're going to commit crimes, and you're going to do some of that stuff, like stealing the speaker's podium, and this is in D.C., they are going to come after your ass. They are going to load up the MRAP, and they're going to go after you. I mean, so that is the one level where obviously that did occur. The rest of the stuff, I mean, I basically agree with. I mean, if you're just saying the government will overcharge people, the police can be abusive, yeah.
Right. No, I agree with you. I just think that, I mean, I haven't looked at that list, but I would guess of the 702, I would probably say 255. But the others, not just do you need the FBI to go down their street at 6 o'clock in the morning with 30 guys, I'm more like, why? Like the charge you just read from Brandon Straka. I look at what's going on in the country. I moved to New York from Chicago. I see people and Will knows it so well. I see people with literal gun charges not do time. I look at this and I'm like, why? Why waste the paperwork? Why waste the energy on that?
I actually think that this is my probably final comment until the end of the show, because I think we have some more questions about the movie. But I mean, that really is the context of quote-unquote 1/6 that needs to be brought up in any discussion, whether you strongly oppose these guys or you feel some sympathy. We saw massive city-burning riots for most of a year. I mean, in Minneapolis, an active police station was set on fire with the officers in it. They had to kick out a back door to get away. Otherwise, there might have been, say, a dozen deaths, certainly smoke inhalation. In Chicago, they looted the damn Mag Mile. And the storekeepers and some of the cops fought back. There was a near battle in the city with people doing things like cleaning out the Louis Vuitton store. In it wasn't Portland, it was Seattle. Portland, by the way, not as big a deal as these three, but they rioted for 100 straight days. In
Right.
Seattle, they actually set up their own city-state called Chaz, which the SoundCloud rapper Raz Simone, who I've met, cool guy, but ran as a warlord for a period of weeks. They shot 6 young black men at the border. Quote
And the
unquote.
mayor said it was like summer camp.
Yeah, they had a diverse art. It was like something out of Mad Max. They had this mix of black dudes and white city kids with like war paint on carrying ARs, guarding the boundaries of their city-state. All this happened. You can Google Chaz Raz Simone, see exactly what occurred. There's no exaggeration
Police
there.
station in Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's the first one that
The Wendy's in Atlanta.
Yeah, but I mean, the Wendy's isn't quite the same scale as the active police station. But yeah, so that is the context. I mean, they
But
set up
still,
police
a
station
building
on fire.
burning to the ground, and they're like, meh.
No, but I mean, like, the idea, they won a land battle with the police. I mean, there was stand-up fighting for something like an hour and a half. Then they went to the police station, they set it on fire, and the officers retreated. They
Drove away.
order with their shields up. It looked like Agincourt. You know, so I mean, that is, I think, the context of this. So I don't have much sympathy for, as you said, that core block of guys that got arrested. At the same time, I mean, why is this dominating national media for a year? We all know why, and we all know exactly what month of 2022 it's going to dominate national media until.
Right.
I got to say something. When you say you don't have much sympathy for the core guys that got arrested for January 6th,
Podium
and in
guy.
breath, you're talking about the riots where they're killing people and burning down buildings and taking over cities, and no arrests were made. None of those people paid any price.
Lock 'em all up.
It's a totally ridiculous comparison. There is no comparison to what happened on January 6th, to what happened in Seattle, what happened in Minneapolis, or what happened in Kenosha. No comparison. And the people who did those riots did not pay a price for it. They let those go. Them.
Well, they arrested him before the vice president, soon to be vice president, bailed him out.
Right.
And Justin Timberlake.
Yeah. And
Well, I've been critical. I'll agree with Nick on this one. Yeah, of course the large-scale riots were worse. But like, someone argued that in a particular city, I think it was Milwaukee, we arrest a higher percentage of black criminals than white criminals for some bullshit thing. It was like cocaine possession. My response was arrest more white criminals. Don't let the black criminals go. And that's kind of my take on this. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should go. There should be some federal investigation of what happened in, say, Kenosha that leads to 100 arrests. We don't need to let Podium guy go. We need to lock up all those assholes that set that city on fire.
And see, that's what leads to my problem with the media coverage and the way this looked. I'm like, if you want to arrest everybody for, I kind of lean like Will. I mean, if you do the crime, something's going to happen. But or you're taking a chance that something will happen. But don't get up on your nighttime cable news show and talk about and cry about how the country's over and democracy is dead. Or don't act like you're clutching your pearls. Like, I've never seen anything this bad before. They took a podium. Well, you like, and then 6 months prior to that, you were on there like, yeah, sometimes you got to get in people's faces when some random guy you don't know gets a knee on the neck. Yeah, you got to rob a couple stores and shoot a couple people. It's okay. It's the same guy. And my issue is the normative people who are watching the news and the people who are on Twitter who are fighting saying, well, I don't see what the big deal is. Yes, I think that was an insurrection. And yeah, I think looting is okay. It makes no sense. At least Will is consistent and like, well, lock them all up. But they're like, yeah, like Nick said, there's no difference. I can't believe, Will, you're saying there's no difference between these two sets of people. And Don Lemon and people like them will say, no, there's a big difference. Those people in January 6th should be killed, and the people in Minneapolis should be, given a jobs program.
Yeah, that was just a justified protest in Seattle and in Minneapolis.
Mostly peaceful.
Yeah, mostly peaceful.
But Shamika, I do want to ask you and Nick this, because you all were possibly there. I did hear people saying that, because I watched some people, I didn't watch the thing like live that day when people were like on Facebook Live and showing some stuff. And some people that I knew were there, not Shamika, but people that I knew that were there, and they were filming what they're doing. And I'm just like randomly looking at things. and I see some of them saying like, "Man, this is getting kind of crazy out of here. I'm going in the other direction." Something, so they felt something brewing. So whether it was provocateurs or whether it was like the angry MAGA people finally trying to get what's white, I mean, what's right, whatever it was, they seemed to sense that something was going awry. But you all seem like you didn't notice that at all on your side. I mean, you were in eating shrimp and wine, and Nick is making Apple movies or something. So. I mean, I know it was a large crowd, but you telling me all of that was only isolated on certain parts?
Yeah, I would say so because I just didn't see any of that. Again, I did see them go through the barriers, but once I, was trying to see what was going on, they were singing the national anthem and different, like standing on the steps. I saw people with bullhorns, so I couldn't see, I guess what was happening behind the people standing on the steps as far as people going inside the Capitol. So I didn't see that. All I saw, I was talking to people on the grass. I think Benny from the block or Benny Johnson or something was out there. I had an interview with him. I just didn't see all of what I saw on the news. Now, I will say when we were headed back towards the condo, there were a lot of police headed that way. And I asked, there was a black female officer, and I asked her what was going on, and she said there's a bomb threat. So she did tell me that. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's a bomb threat. But the things that I saw that on TV happening at the Capitol, I didn't see that. I don't know if it's because I wasn't close enough, I was preoccupied with other things. I just didn't see any of that.
And the bomb threat. I mean, they can track down little old ladies that went into the Capitol building and go visit them at their house, but they can't find whoever put the bombs out there. I don't believe it. I don't believe there even was a bomb. If there was one, they would have found that guy. I think all of that is a smoke screen, and it's all a cover for what they're really trying to do.
So Nick, who's the target audience for the film? It doesn't sound like you're trying to find those mushy people in the middle and convince them. So I mean, or maybe I'm wrong. So who would you say the target audience is?
Well, I think the audience for this film is people who are interested in what happened that day. I mean, I would like for anybody to watch this film, no matter what side they're on, and just see what's happening to these people, see what they did, and see what's happening to them, and just tell me, do you think that's the way these people should be treated? Do you think that's the way this government should be run? By terrorizing people like this who are charged with entering a restricted area? I was there. There was no signs up that said, this is a restricted area. Whatever that restricted area is, it's in their heads, and it wasn't in anybody's mind that was there that day. I also would like to say that, most of the people that were there were not there. The thing that was going on in the Capitol was exactly what we were there that wanted to happen. Inside the Capitol building, Ted Cruz was standing up and challenging the electors from certain states. Josh Hawley was standing up and challenging the electors. Everything that was going on in the building was what we wanted to happen. We wanted them to take 10 days and go back to the states and count the votes. Then when the break-in happened and everybody was evacuated, they stopped doing that. They said, we can't continue to do this. We're going to certify the election no matter what, because we can't have these crazy 65, 70-year-old insurrectionists destroying our Capitol and taking over our government. So nobody wanted the Capitol to be breached, because what was going on in the Capitol was exactly the process that we wanted to happen.
I'd like to add to what Nick just said. This goes back to his previous point when he said that people were already at the Capitol before Trump's speech ended. I actually didn't get to go to Trump's speech because I wasn't feeling well, and because this is men on the panel, I want to say I was having really bad menstrual cramps. So you're welcome.
I know how you feel.
So,
and how do you know we're men?
I hope I didn't misgender you.
Not yet.
Yeah, when I got to the Capitol, of course, there wasn't as many people, because he's right. The speech hadn't ended that Trump gave. And so, I tried to call Brandon, where are you guys? I never got to see him because they hadn't left Trump's speech yet. And so when they talk about people in being trespassing or whatever, people that came from Trump's speech didn't get to see the barriers. By the time they got there, those barriers were already gone. So it's like, how would they have known that this area was somewhere they weren't supposed to be? I'm not talking about inside the Capitol, but I'm talking about for those that can go on site, inside on the grounds. They wouldn't have known because those barriers had already been removed before they got there. So only people that were, maybe missed the speech or just got there early got to see where those barriers were to even know not to go past that. So those people didn't get to see those barriers. So to them, I guess it would be shocking that, oh, we can't be on this part of the grass, or the ground, but this part was okay. Like, those barriers were already gone.
And so, how bad do you think, any of you, this, we've already seen part of it, but I don't think it's over. This narrative of insurrection is going to be for either the GOP in 22 and 24, or for the country, because they're going to the media is going to continue to play that tune because it works. So what do you think? They're using it as a weapon, obviously, whether it's true or not. They are. So how bad do you think it's going to be to have that as something they can constantly go to gin up people on social media and rile people up, celebrities and such. Every time when it's time to get out the vote, you need to go out. I know you're apathetic, and I know you don't like the candidates we put forth, but remember January 6th. How effective do you think that will be, and how much how long do you think we'll have to endure that?
For me, I think it's going to continue because, again, you have people that are not really speaking out, or you just don't see the point. Like, for me, I'm like, what's really the point of me telling what I saw? Either no one believes it, or they just feel like, oh, they've hired her to say this. It's not my true experience of what happened that day. I'm actually upset for those that went in the Capitol for no reason. If I'm honest, if you were going to be charged with the insurrection, I feel like you should have rolled up in there and set it off. Don't be up in there peeing all over the place and stealing laptops. Actually go in there and do something, because we're having to deal with this because you wanted to take selfies. And I just,
put your feet up on the desk.
Yeah, like, you should have went all the way.
Nick, what do you think?
Well, they're never going to give it up because the end game here is not any sort of justice. The end game here is what it's always been. They're trying to each other. They're trying to make us hate each other, and they're trying to destroy the country. That is the point. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make America an unworkable country, and the way they're doing it is by making us hate each other.
So how do we push back against that?
I'm sorry?
How do we push back against the insurrectionist narrative?
Well, by making movies that tell the truth, like Capital Punishment, available on Thanksgiving Day at capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. In all seriousness, we have to just start speaking up and not being afraid, like Shamika was just talking about. We talked to so many people that we wanted to interview that were afraid to talk to us. And one person that we interviewed, that he did the interview and then called us and said, "Take me out. My lawyer says I'm going to get in trouble." They are trying to terrify Americans into not speaking up, into not speaking their conscience, and not saying what they believe. And we have to fight back against that by standing up to the bullies and not being afraid to say what we know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to go on record as saying, I'm black, I'm anemic, it was cold, I left early, I didn't get close.
Hypothetically. Well,
I will say this real quickly. One of the things that kept occurring to me while we're doing this is, why didn't they come after me? I didn't do anything any different than these prosecuting did. Why did they select certain people?
They will now that you're making this terrible movie.
Well, it's too late now. I kept saying while we were shooting, it'd be great if the FBI came after me now. That'd be a great ending.
Right. We have to do a second or third ending after that. But I guess we're fortunate because when I talked to you, you said you were going to come on and talk about the movie, and reached out to Shamika and Will, and they decided to come on. I mean, I could have been as unfortunate as some other people and have my coworkers quit because I was having you on to talk about this
That's right. Yeah.
thing.
Your action's gone. Oh my God.
Right, but no one, no, I haven't seen anybody just stand up and snatch off a mic and say, "I'm done with this. I've reached the final straw." But the bottom line is just whatever you think of January 6th. I mean, we have to agree that people have gotten a bit extreme about it, about because the argument has never really been. At least I'm sure some people argue it, but I've never really seen should they have gone into the Capitol or should they not have gone into the Capitol, or even whatever it was about to stop the steal. It's like, are these people crazy for saying that Biden cheated or whatever the case may be? Okay, have that argument, but that's not the argument. The argument is, if you watch MSNBC and CNN, is that these 300 grannies and a couple of crazy hippies on drugs we're going to take over the country, and if we don't punish them to the fullest extent and destroy them and their families, who knows? Somebody else might try to steal a podium. I mean, it's crazy. We can't have people going around stealing podiums. It's like they act like they really think they at the same time they say we have the most powerful military. They say all these wonderful things about how strong we are, and we're not going to allow this to happen, and we can flush out anything we need to. But I'm afraid of any foreign attack if we think that 300 people without weapons is. I mean, that was an actual debate on social media for like 3 weeks after this. What is an insurrection, and can 300 people without weapons really be considered an insurrection? And I'd say at that time, back in late January, 60% of the people say, yeah, they can still be trying to take over the country. So I don't know where this goes, but hopefully your movie will shed some light on things, and people will go and see it. Even you always talk about, people are fighting on social media about we just want the truth, and and I don't trust the media, and I don't trust the government, and I don't trust these people. Whatever you think Nick is, and you think he's crazy, and he's one of these crazy right wingers. He's interviewing people that was there, right? He's there on the ground and he's got a camera on, right? So at the bottom line, you can see what's going on around him and say, are people like torching things or going and running into the Capitol in the background, or are the people mostly peaceful? So they should watch it, if nothing else, just to get that footage and then see what happened to the people you highlight, and see if they think, like you said, that it's fair, or if they don't really care because they're on the wrong side. But Nick, it's your film, so I guess I'll give you the last word to say whatever you want to say about capital punishment.
Well, I think people, if they will give the film a chance, there's a lot more to the January 6th story than the media is telling you. They have certainly been lying about it from day one. And, I'm not perfect, but this is what I've found. These are the people that I talk to. These are the things that and, I think everybody that is willing to give it a chance will learn something, and they'll also have some fun because I make a bunch of really great jokes in it.
If you do say so yourself.
You have that to look forward to.
All right, he is Nick Searcy, actor, producer, director, and his new film Capital Punishment will be available on Thanksgiving. How do you download it again?
You go to capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. It's cap with an O, like the Capitol building. Capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. It's $9.90. Pre-order it right now, and it'll be available right after midnight on Thanksgiving Day. If you have a nice Thanksgiving dinner with your family and nobody gets in a fight, you can turn this movie on, and the fight will start right then.
All right, Nick, thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right, good to be with you guys. Bye, Will. Bye, Tamika.
Thank you.
Patriot J, I'm saving the day. Patriot J, I'm saving the day from you commies who lame. No, you can't fuck with me. I got a country to save. God bless the US of A. Land of the free and a home of the brave. God get all of the praise. I got a country to save, cause I'm Patriot J and I'm saving the day.